were alone on a desert island with a tribe of hungry cannibals who think you are a god. A tribe of natives who would eat you rather than let you escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson and designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to the South Seas and a cannibal kingdom in H.G. Wells' famous story, Jimmy Goggles, the God. I doubt you'll remember anything of the Ocean Pioneer, though a bit of the story that came to public knowledge made headlines in the newspapers at the time. Blimey, now that I think of it, it's been over 40 years ago it happened. 40 years. And at times yet I can still wake up in the middle of the night and see that cold, dead eye of Jimmy Goggles staring at me from the darkness. It gives me the creeps even now. It all started the night the Ocean Pioneer went to the bottom of the Sonner coast. Only 2 survivors, aside from myself, came out of that wreck. Mr. Sanders, the first mate, and a seaman named Jacob. And with a bit of luck, we had enough food and water in the longboat to see us safe to Papua.
Give away, lads. 3 nights will put us on dry land again.
Aye, it is lucky men we are this time.
All right, just one our time here, Jacob. As it were for Captain Wells and 10 of the lads back there.
Lying under 20 fathom of blinking green water they are.
Ain't all that's laying back there either, lads.
You meaning something by that, Mr. Saunders?
Does either of you lads know the cargo we carried?
Aye. Copra mostly and some spices.
Not that. Lads, at Guinea we shipped aboard a chest full of gold dust. Worth 40,000 pounds.
40,000 pounds.
I wondered about that chest at the time, Mr. Saunders.
That chest still back there, lads. In Captain Wells' cabin.
Aye. 20 fathoms down. Yeah, it'll be a nice bit of work for the salvage company.
Not necessarily, eh?
What is it you're meaning to say?
I'm the only man alive knows ship's position when she sunk.
So you are. Go on, Mr. Saunders.
Suppose now, when we get to Papua, we give report ship struck 100 miles or so to the north. Then the salvage ship goes there, we come here, and pick up a title fortune for ourselves.
And how do we come here?
My brother-in-law has a brig in the Sydney trade. He'll come in with us. Well, lad, are you in or are you out?
40,000 pounds. I'm in.
Aye, 40,000 pounds. A bloomin' fortune there for the taking. Of course we went in on it. Back in Papua, Saunders made the arrangements with his brother-in-law, Captain Ferguson. And a fortnight later, we set forth in the brig Pride of Banya. There were just the 4 of us in the diving suit. It was one of them kind of diving suits that don't have a pump or airline. Carried its own tank of compressed air attached so you could walk around on the bottom independent-like. We hung the suit on the wall in a mess room, and believe me, it was some bright times we enjoyed besides it during the 3 weeks the Pride of Banya beat in towards Sonner Channel. We'd wonder how long it'd be before we'd get there, and what the salvage ship might be finding 100 miles away from the wreck. And all the time acting like we hadn't a care in the world. And that confounded diving suit would sway back and forth like a regular human being, it would. And the glass window in the front staring like a big eye in the middle of its fat copper head. We got so we'd talk to it like it was somebody. And we even give it a name. Jimmy Goggles, we called it. Jimmy Goggles. And every time we'd break open some rum, we'd pour a glass or so into Jimmy Goggles. So by the time we got to Sonner, instead of smelling rubbery, his inside was as sweet as a cask of rum. we found the place, we was afraid to take the brig into the rocks where the wreck was lying. So we anchored about half-mile off, and all of us rowed to it in the longboat.
Aye. She's still there, all right. I can see the tip of one of her masts above the water.
Devil take the mast. It's the fortune below I'm interested in.
Oh, fear. It'll be there, lad. There to the port a bit.
Hey, is it still agreed? I'm the one to go inside Jimmy Goggles to make the first trip down.
Aye, George. It's what we decided. Easy now. Nigh on to her.
I can't say I envy you none, George.
Back the oars now. Easy. There, got a line around the mast. Keep us from drifting. Better get into that diving suit, George.
Right away, Captain Ferguson.
Aye. Just as happy it ain't me that's going down.
Huh?
Yes.
Why not take it?
Behind.
What are you talking about?
It'll be cold and dark down there at 20 fathom. Might be sights that ain't good for a man to see. In the dark and alone.
Jacobs, you wander on like an old woman. I reckon the look of 40,000 pounds will cure a heap of other sights.
I'm ready, sir. Except to secure the faceplate.
Good. You know how to operate the valve?
Aye, sir.
And turn on the air.
George, you'll find the chest in Captain's cabin. Move it if you can, or see about the chances of getting a line on it.
Right, Joe.
And good luck.
Aye, good luck.
Good luck.
Well, cheerio, lads. I closed the little glass window in my helmet and fastened it. Then I edged toward the stern. Saunders was saying something, but I couldn't make out what it was. We didn't have no ladder, so I slid over the stern and hung there by the gunwale for a minute with the helmet out of the water. I took a last look at the light of day, and I let go. Slow it was. I sunk down through that green water. The only sound was the air bubbling out of the helmet valve. That valve, you understand, was the only way you had of controlling the descent of old Jimmy Goggles. If you opened it up, down you'd go. If you clamped it fairly tight, the suit would get full of air, and up you'd pop as fast as a man had cared to. Full 5 minutes or more it took to sink that 20 fathom. Them ghostly sea ferns went slithering past like snakes, and big purple and red clumps of jagged coral. And the light from the surface getting dimmer and dimmer. So as by the time I hit bottom, it was pretty near dark. I was happy to find myself come right down on the deck of the old Ocean Pioneer. And a familiar sight she was, saving for the crabs skittering around her planks, the bloomin' fish swimming past my head and goggling in through the window of my helmet. I made my way to the deck cabin. Right before the door, I stumbled onto a blinking skeleton, lying there on the deck as peaceful as you please. Judging by the gold braid still hanging on it, it had been old Captain Wells himself. So there weren't enough left of it now to make a decent meal for an hungry guppy. Bobbed around like very gentle when I touched it, and all the time was wearing an horrible grin on its bony face. Like to give a man the shivers. I tell you certain I got through the business down there as quick as I could. Found the chest of gold and figured out the best way to get a blocking line on it. But even so, it must have been an half hour before I clamped the air valve and started for the top. Halfway up, something hit my helmet and slid on down past. I found myself looking right into the blooming face of First Mate Saunders. His mouth was hanging open, and a kind of pink smoke was drifting out of it and making a cloud in the water. I saw he had a spear run through his neck from one side to the other, and he was dead on the mackerel. He sunk on past out of sight, and then Jacobs drifted down from above, and I could see his head was all twisted to one side like and his neck was broken. He was dead, too. Then it hit me. The lads on top had been massacred by a boatload of them bloomin' heathen savages, and like as not, if I poked my head out, the same would happen to me. Oh, blimey. I cracked open the helmet valve and shot down toward the bottom. I sat down there on a sunken rock for nigh on to 15 minutes, I guess, trying to figure out what to do. But any way a man would look at it, there weren't but one answer. So finally, crazy as it seemed, I got up and started out to walk ashore. After a while, the bottom began to slope up and it wasn't so dark anymore. Finally, my arm had poked up out of the water. I saw the beach about 50 yards away with dark jungle right behind it. I sloshed on through the water and came out on the sand. Then I opened the faceplate and Jimmy Goggle did, and cut off the air from the tank and took a deep breath of the natural kind. That's when I saw them. At least 100 blinking savages painted up like banshees. It stepped out of the brush and started moving toward me, slow, beating soft on a couple of drums and growling low and evil-like. Well, George Herbert, you're in for it now, I tells myself. Half a mile of underwater walking and you're still forgetting your bloomin' throat cut. I snapped the faceplate partway shut and cracked the air valve a bit. The diving suit swelled up like a bloated frog. And I started walking toward them. When I got close, they moved back along two sides of a kind of path, and I walked right down the middle of it. It led back into the jungle, and pretty quick we come out in a little clearing with a grass hut standing in the middle of it. And sitting in front of the hut was an heathen idol, carved out in koa wood. Was grinning about as hideous as you ever hoped to see. And the idea hit me. I was in a spot. It couldn't be much worse, and maybe it would work. The natives seemed to be awed by Jimmy Goggles already. So I reached out and gave the idol a great push, expecting any second to feel a spear through my gullet. I looked up. Blimey, if them heathens weren't down on their faces, worshipping like mad. It had worked. Oh, not me, you understand. Except in the manner of speaking. It was Jimmy Goggles with his copper head and his one glass eye, with me inside him. They'd seen him walk up out in the sea, and they figured he was a god. Old rum-soaked Jimmy Goggles. A regular bloomin' god. After a while, it began to get on my nerves, so I went inside the hut. They stayed outside and didn't follow me, but they didn't go away, neither. In a couple of hours, it started to get dark, and I was wondering if they meant to spend the rest of their lives out there bowing on the ground. Finally, a tall native, painted up like a circus clown, stepped inside the door and stood there, just grinning like old Satan himself. Blimey, if I had me a pistol, my beauty, I'd have you grinning on the other side of your face.
Oh, would you now?
Huh? What?
You're speaking mighty bold for a man who's had a lot of luck.
Depart, unworthy mortal, for I smite you with lightning.
Oh, relax, one. I've been some time around plantations in Papua. Learned thing or two I did, including English language.
Jumping, Christopher. What the devil you doing here?
Taking advantage my simple brethren. Something else I learned at Papua. My name, Mamala. I'm high priest, witch doctor, call it whatever you want.
Oh, I'm happy to know you. Mine's George Herbert, officer of the English brig Pride of Banyan.
The late brig, you might say. Boys burned it a couple hours ago.
Burned it? What for? Aye. Why was it you attacked us in the first place?
Oh, a bit of go like that once in a while keeps boys feeling joyful like, George. It's harmless in manner of speaking.
Harmless, is it? Not for my boys it weren't.
Oh, well. What were you diving for out there, anyhow?
Pearls.
So it now, mate. You are looking over that wreck down there on the reef. What's aboard her?
All right, Mamela. She was carrying 40,000 pounds in gold dust.
40,000 pounds? Know where it is?
Aye.
We could use 40,000 pounds, couldn't we, George?
I'm listening.
We might make deal. You keep on being the god, and I be your high priest. You can't talk their language anyways. Between us, we'll have him eating out of our hands. Meanwhile, we'll figure a way to raise gold off the bottom.
Hold off. You mean I gotta go on wearing this bloomin' suit all the time?
Only if you want to stay alive. They found there was man inside it. I tear you to pieces.
Oh, blimey, it ain't all it's cracked up to be being a god.
At least you're alive, mate. And we'll both be rich.
Aye. Are they gonna spend the night out there?
We'll be leaving after ceremony, except for guard of honor.
I understand you. What's the ceremony?
Oh, a little piece of business with owner of brig. We captured him alive, you know.
Captain Ferguson? What kind of business?
A bit of this, a bit of that. When they get done, they cook him, of course.
Cook him?
Well, now, you wouldn't expect boys to eat him raw. Wouldn't be civilized, you know. See you in the morning, George.
Oh, it was pretty horrible, all right. But what with one thing and another, I didn't feel as bad about it as I might have. After all, I hadn't known the captain too well anyhow. Nearly a month went by in mighty uncomfortable fashion. And all the time, Mamela was trying to figure some way to get that gold out of the wreck. I was right in with him at first. Then I got to noticing how he was always saying what he could do with 40,000 pounds. And then I'd kind of remind him we was AFAs, and he'd grin, strange-like, and see, that's what he meant all the time. But I didn't trust him no way. And I started stalling every way I could, and things stayed about as they were. I kept on being a god, and we couldn't get no proper chance to go after the gold. Then one morning, Mamela and most of the tribe went back into the jungle to hunt. I was sitting in the hut trying to think of some way to do for that heathen before he could do for me, when I happened to hear voices outside. I sneaked a look through the palm hedge. It was an Englishman, dressed up fit to kill in white canvas shorts and a sun helmet and all. He had a native interpreter all dressed up and walking with him.
They're idols. Tribal gods.
But it's been turned over. Do they no longer worship such things?
Master, I could...
Looky here, gents. If you'll step inside, I'll show you what they're worshipping.
Hey, now.
Come in, come in. Welcome, gents.
Stop that heated chattering. I've taught you better.
Oh, now take it easy, lad. Nothing but a diving suit, you know.
Yes, of course. I saw that. Who are you, anyway?
Yeah, no, let's not be asking names, seeing as I didn't ask yours.
There's no objection to telling you, sir. It's Bender. I'm with the Royal Anglico-Papuan Missionary Society.
No, not really.
Please, no profanity.
Might be a slip. How'd you get here?
By sailing cutter, down coast from the Bankeel Residency.
Well, you've had a bit of luck. If the boys was here, you'd be in a proper fix by now.
Oh, I dare say we'd be in no danger.
No danger, huh? What is it you'd call being cooked like a pork tenderloin? Have they done it to one of my friends?
An adventurer, no doubt. But the natives are well aware that if anything happened to me, there'd be a gunboat here from the residency in 48 hours.
Oh, that's how the wind blows, is it?
It is indeed. And may I ask why you're masquerading in that diving rig?
Aye. To keep from getting myself killed, that's why. The natives think this blinking rubber union suits a regular god.
I see. And you've been preying on their childish credulity.
Childish it may be, Mr. Bender, but they've got full-grown teeth. Aye, and I've seen them in action.
Well, you'll simply have to take your chances, because I'm going to expose you.
You know, you can't be doing that. Well, if they was to find out I was a human being, they'd do me in for fair.
Well, I'll help you as much as I can, but you should have thought of that before you tried exploiting them.
But you can't let it happen to a fellow Englishman.
Then why don't you leave now while they're away? You'd likely be able to get aboard the ship that's working a mile or so down the coast.
What ship?
Some salvage vessel looking for a wreck. They think it might have drifted down the channel from the north.
Oh, it just might have it there. They might find it. Mr. Bender, I'll make a proposition.
I won't promise anything, but I'll listen.
Leave here now and sail down the coast a ways and stay till nightfall. Then come back as soon as it's dark, and I'll let you expose me to your heart's content. In fact, you might say, Mr. Bender, I'll even welcome it. Weren't nothing else to do. If that salvage ship found who I was, I'd be in it for good. They'd know by now that we'd filed a false report about the position of the wreck, so we could get the gold for ourselves. They'd put me in the brig for sure. And if I tried to leave with Bender, he'd turn me into the first British resident we come across. I had no chance at all at the 40,000. And if I stayed here, like as not, I'd end up parceled amongst 100 heathen stomachs. But I had one chance of showing that blinking mammal as how you weren't the only one that knew a thing or two. I finally talked Bender into leaving, and about dusk, Mamela and the boys came back.
Understand that nosy man, Bender, was snooping around here this afternoon, George. Know anything about it?
Bender, eh? Oh, that's who it was. I saw him prowling around the clearing, but he didn't come inside the hut. I'd have given him what for if he had.
It's a good thing he didn't. It's a blasted nuisance, always interfering with established customs of the people.
Like witch doctors, eh, Mamela?
Gods, too, George. He'd do for you quick and he would be.
Yeah. Why don't the boys just eat it?
No. That would be too dangerous. He'd be missed and they'd send gunboats.
Not still around here somewhere, is he?
No. Women say he sailed on south.
Good. I'd just as leave not meet him face to face.
It was for him with that face you're wearing.
Aye, and I'm nigh on to being fed up with wearing it. Mamela me, auntie. I'll make you a proposition.
Mm-hmm. What kind of proposition, George?
Why don't you take over being God?
And what would you be doing if that happened?
Oh, leave me some food and water in one of the boats, and as soon as it's dark, I'll cut and run for it. It'll be easy for you to get the gold that way. Aye. And you can have the old 40,000.
Your generosity embarrasses me, George.
Anyways, supposing I was up and died sudden like, how'd you explain my body to the boys?
I have been thinking about that, but I hadn't figured it out yet.
I was wondering if you hadn't been.
You know a thing or two, don't you, George?
Enough to know you weren't going to share with me unless you had to.
Frankly, you're right. This may be best way. I'd have my little brethren right under my thumb. You out of my way with no need for explanation. All right, George. I'll keep the boys away from the clearing so you can make your break. Both be ready in half hour. Good luck. Working out just as nice as you please. I made my break all right, but I wasn't heading for any boat. No, sir, not me. Leastwise, not yet. I hid myself in the jungle at the edge of the clearing. Then I waited. After a while, them savages started drifting back into the clearing, and pretty soon Mamela, all dressed up in Jimmy goggles, came out and sat in front of the hut, the way I'd been doing every night. And the blooming heathens started in bowing down, all just as usual. I waited a long time before I finally heard it. A commotion starting over at the far edge of the clearing and coming closer.
There was Bender and his boy Friday, walking through the crowd to where Jimmy Goggles sat with Mamily inside him. The crowd moved aside and let him pass, but you could tell they were just waiting for that one-eyed god of theirs to knock him stone dead. He stopped in front of the hut.
All right, I'm back. Suppose you carry out your part of the bargain and take off that... Get out, you fool! I didn't really believe you were honest. All right, Thomas. Tell the natives this is nothing but a man dressed up.
Hey, Connie! Hello,
Blimey, if Bender didn't jump onto Memel and start turning at the front of the diving chute. And all the time that heathen witch doctor kept trying to fight him off. And it seemed as though Mamala hadn't known how to fasten the helmet properly, because suddenly it tipped back on his shoulders, and there he was. A face them savages knew as well as their own offspring. And they didn't like it even one little bit. Aye. They'd been taken in by one of their hometown boys, so to speak, and they weren't for having any. They didn't harm Bender none, but they shoved him off to one side. They made one grand rush for Map. And they got it. And blimey, if what happened then wasn't downright uncivilized. I cut and run for it and tumbled into that boat and shoved off. I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for old Memela, though it wasn't as if he hadn't eaten his own share of human beings. And of course, he certainly wasn't a man who could be trusted at all. Well, it was a long time after, before I heard how Mr. Bender made out. Seems as though he couldn't get them bloomin' heathens to listen to him at all. And one day he hit on the idea of climbing into that diving chute. And from then on he had a crowd around every time he'd open his mouth. As far as I know, old Jimmy Goggles may still be down there summers. With his battered copper head, and his rummy smell, and his one glass eye, he may still be doing business. Right down there at the same old stand.
Afraid to face the tax collector tomorrow? Fed up with high prices? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape.
You have shipped aboard a South Sea schooner with a ghost of its dead captain in command. A ghost who shoots guns, resurrects the dead, creates a terror from which you cannot escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape across the limitless horizons of the South Seas in Alfred Noy's version of a classic legend of blue water, The Log of the Evening Star.
Tahiti, French Oceania, June the 19th. The sailing schooner Evening Star, reported missing since the 1st of April, today was discovered 100 miles west of here, drifting about in a dead calm, with all sails set, but not a soul on board. The ship, when found, was well stocked with food and water, and all three of her small boats were still present. The sun-baked body of the ship's cat was lying in the bow, and the mess table in the crew's quarters had been laid in preparation for a meal which was never served. Otherwise, everything aboard seemed to be in order, and no solution can be offered to explain the whereabouts of the 12 persons who sailed on her from San Francisco. it appears that the fate of the Evening Star will remain permanently one of the weird and unsolved mysteries of the sea.
My name is Harper. I'm first mate of the South Sea schooner Evening Star. I'm writing this because I believe it my duty to make some record of the terrible things which have just occurred. Events I can't possibly enter in the ship's log. I can't, of course, be certain that this account will ever come to light, because I'm not likely to live another 24 hours. I guess I should have been able to see it 3 weeks ago, on the day we sailed from San Francisco. But I didn't. I remember I was standing on the deck of the Evening Star, talking to Cato, the cook, while we waited for Captain Burgess to come aboard. We were due to sail in a half hour.
Where you think we go on this trip, Mr. Harper?
Oh, I don't know, Cato. Marquesas first, then Tahiti, maybe on to Australia.
It's good to report. It's better on open sea.
You said it.
We seem very strange this trip without Captain Dayrell.
Yeah. We'd had the same gang together for over 2 years. Some Kanakas, and the crew, you and I and Burgess, Dayrell. Hard to believe he's been dead 4 months now, isn't it?
Yes. Captain Dayrell was proud man. Was good captain. It's too bad he died.
Yeah. Well, Burgess will make a good skipper, too. He was all right as first mate.
Why he no come on board yet?
Captain Burgess? Well, I don't know. Just can't bear to leave that new bride of his, I guess.
You have seen her, Mr. Harper? You know her, maybe?
No, I haven't. He's been staying down the coast somewhere ever since he got married a couple weeks ago. I don't even know who she is.
New wife, new command. Oh, he's a lucky man.
Cato, I got a strong hunch you're a sentimentalist down underneath.
Oh, it's possible, Mr. Harper. It has been said...
Hey, Cato, there's Burgess now, coming down the pier.
Oh, is somebody with him, too?
Yeah. Guess she's come down to see him off, huh? At least we'll get a chance. No, that's Mrs. Dayrell.
Yeah, maybe she go on ship, too, just like old time.
No. She wouldn't want to sail on the ship her husband died on. I wonder... No.
Mr. Harper, no. Mr. Harper, look. 3 birds fly around the mast.
Yeah. I see him, Cato.
It's very bad sign. Very bad.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that,
Mr. Harper, is everything in order?
Oh, right, Captain Burgess. We can sail any time you want. How are you, Miss Dayrell?
Why, just fine.
Dayrell? Oh, yes, of course. Mr. Harper, even though you're already acquainted with the lady, I'd like to present my wife.
Your wife?
We were married 2 weeks ago, Mr. Harper. I'm sailing with you on this trip.
Well, that's fine. I'm glad to have you aboard, Mrs. Burgess, I mean. Well, it'll be like old times.
Old times, Mr. Harper?
Well, I mean, all of us together and everything. Well, congratulations to both of you.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Look, I brought Satan along, too. He wouldn't miss this trip for anything.
Yeah, he's right at home. How are you, Satan? Would you like to look over the clearance papers, Captain Burgess? I got them right here.
No, thank you, Mr. Harper. I'll assume they're in order. We'll sail as soon as as soon as my wife's trunk comes aboard.
Yes, sir.
I'll be in the cabin if you want anything.
Cato, would you take Satan and give him something to eat? I think he's hungry.
Yes, Missy. I'll take him right now. Come on, Kitty. We'll go find something to eat.
Well, Mr. Harper, we're all together again.
That's right, Miss Burgess. We've even got Satan on board.
Yes. All of us, except my husband.
Your husband is down in the cabin, Mrs. Burgess. You mean we're all here except Captain Dayrell? Well, once out at sea, things straightened out a little, the way they always do. After a while, we got so we could think of her as Mrs. Burgess instead of Mrs. Dayrell. And after that, it wasn't so awkward. Captain Burgess stayed to himself quite a bit. But all in all, it was a fairly pleasant 3 weeks. Up until yesterday afternoon. I was standing in the bow, smoking, watching a school of dolphins skip out of the water when Mrs. Burgess came up behind me.
Mr. Harper, I wonder if I could speak to you a moment.
Of course, Miss Burgess.
I'm terribly frightened.
You're frightened? What about?
Is he around anywhere?
Is who around?
My husband. I don't want him to hear me.
What? Now, Mrs. Burgess, I can't listen to
No,
that.
please. You're the only one I can turn to. We're all in terrible danger, you know.
Danger? What are you talking about?
Mr. Harper, do you have any reason to think my husband may be not quite himself?
Not quite himself? In what way?
Do you think he may be insane?
Of course not.
Yes, but you don't understand.
I understand one thing, Mrs. Burgess. I'd better get back to my duties.
I quite agree with you, Mr. Harper.
Captain Burgess.
I believe you really should stay in the cabin, my dear. It's far too windy for you up here in the bow.
Yes. I was just going. I'm going right now.
She has a rather delicate throat, Mr. Harper. Catches cold easily. Used to be a singer, you know.
Yes, sir, I know.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course you do. Well, don't pay too much attention to anything my wife might say, Mr. Harper. She's upset. Just don't pay any attention to her.
Something was wrong, all right. No question of that. But I couldn't figure what. I couldn't think of any terrible danger. It seemed more likely it was Mrs. Burgess who was not quite herself. Well, anyway, the whole business didn't make much sense, so I shrugged it off and forgot about it. For a couple of hours. It was just at dusk. Most of the crew was below decks. I was sitting on the after hatch, scratching the ears of Satan, the ship's cat. The sun was just dropping past the horizon, and Satan was purring, meowing. Everything was pretty peaceful. Until I heard those voices coming from Captain Burgess' cabin.
He acted, you told him.
No, really, I didn't. I wouldn't tell anybody. You know I wouldn't.
It wasn't a matter of eavesdropping. They'd even forgotten anyone might hear them.
You don't mean it. You're only saying it.
I mean it all right.
Then you don't care about me. If he were alive, I'd still be with him.
You can say that when you know about the thing that's here on board with us?
Oh, it's your imagination. I told you that.
Imagination, eh? Is that what you told Harper? Is it?
No. Don't!
Answer me!
Let go.
Look out, Satan.
This is what he wants me to do.
No.
Captain Burgess! Captain Burgess!
Yes, Mr. Harper. What is it?
I wondered if you wanted Cato to bring your dinner here to the cabin, sir.
No, Mr. Harper. I'll eat at the wheel.
Yes,
Going
sir.
aft now. Tell him to bring it up right away.
All right, Captain Burgess.
Mr. Harper, listen carefully. You've got to help me.
All right. How?
Meet me on the afterdeck as soon as it's dark, in an hour if I can get away from him.
Did you want something else, Mr. Harper?
No, sir. Nothing else, Captain.
And suppose you go about your duties.
But your wife, sir. Doesn't she want something to eat?
She does not, Mr. Harper. She's indisposed. She does not wish to be disturbed. Is that perfectly clear?
Now I was convinced that there was danger aboard the Evening Star. I had a feeling that something deadly was stirring itself and coming awake below decks. The first night shadows were bringing a terrible, threatening tenseness. I felt that I ought to scream to keep from laughing. Yet there was nothing to laugh about. I was quite certain that if I hadn't knocked on that door, Captain Burgess would have killed his wife. But why? Well, I hadn't found any sensible answer by the time Cato brought a tray of food to my cabin.
Good evening, Mr. Harper.
Oh. Put it there on the chart table, will you?
Thank you, Mr. Harper.
How's it look on deck, Cato?
Oh, Dick, I do not understand you, Mr. Harper.
I mean, well, is it dark yet?
Oh, it's get dark soon, I think. And I think, too, tonight is not good night.
What do you mean by that?
Is something bad on board ship, Mr. Harper. I no understand what. I no see it, I no hear it, but inside I sense it all the time grow bigger.
Well, that's your imagination, Cato.
Is imagination bother you too, Mr. Harper? This morning, 3 birds fly over ship together. All day I burn much incense. Again, tonight, 3 birds fly over ship together.
Well, what about it?
Is a sign of death, Mr. Harper. Tonight on this ship, somebody die. You like something else, maybe?
No. No, Cato, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Good night, please.
So, I wasn't the only one on board who was feeling something was wrong. I wondered if Cato knew any more of what was back of it than I did. You couldn't tell by looking at him. He could be busting with joy or scared half to death. And that face of his would never show either one. Anyway, 10 minutes later, I was out on the dark fantail, watching the moon cast shadows from the rigging. After a while, I heard her calling my name.
Mr. Harper! Mr. Harper!
Here I am, Miss Burgess.
Oh, thank heaven.
Where's the captain?
I don't know. He didn't come back to the cabin.
All right. Now, suppose you tell me what it's all about and talk fast.
I don't know what it's about, Mr. Harper. Not really. I only know that my husband has gone insane.
Now, you told me that earlier. What makes you think so?
Oh, he tried to kill me.
Yes, I know. Why?
Because of last night. He came into my cabin and woke me up. He was trembling, white as a sheet.
But why?
He said he'd just seen Captain Dayrell on deck.
Dayrell, but he's...
Yes, he died 4 months ago. I told him he imagined it. But he keeps talking about it. He says Captain Dayrell has come back to punish us.
Punish you? For what?
Well, for not waiting longer to get married. Oh, you've got to do something.
Well, if I use force, Mrs. Burgess, it's the same as mutiny.
Yes, but he's insane. He may do anything.
Yes, you're right there. I don't know, but what...
Wait.
Hmm?
There by the mast. Look!
It's Dayrell.
No! Oh, no!
There wasn't any doubt about it. The moonlight behind him threw his shadow toward us on the deck. And he had on that tall, peaked cap and the white muffler he'd always worn when he was alive. He didn't move, didn't say anything, just stood there looking at us.
No, please!
Miss Burgess!
No!
Before I could stop her, Miss Burgess turned and ran for the rail and jumped overboard. One of the Kanakas saw her, grabbed a life preserver, and went in after her. I ran to the longboat hanging in the davits at the port rail.
What happened, Mr. Harper?
I don't know. Let's get this boat in the water. Mrs. Burgess is overboard along with one of the boys. Did you see anything on deck?
What I see, I don't believe.
All right, come on, move. Here, take the oars. Schooner's not got much steerage way, so they shouldn't be far astern. Come on, come on.
Hey, somebody's shooting on deck.
All right, never mind. Keep rowing, will you? We'll find out about it later. We've got to pick up those two before they go under. We didn't find them, though. The shooting on board stopped after a while. We rode around for a half hour or more. We couldn't find a trace of them. Finally, there wasn't anything else to do. So I told the Kanaka to pull for the schooner. We were about 10 yards away from the side when
Hey, Mr. Harper, look!
I looked up at the rail, and there stood Dayrell. He didn't say anything, just stood there. He had a gun in his hand. Dayrell, what are you trying to do? Grab that oar, Joe. We got to get away from him. Joe, I said... Oh! We were drifting away from the side of the schooner. I felt a sharp pain in my shoulder where the bullet had hit. But the Kanaka was worse off. Blood was running down over his face from a hole in the center of his forehead. That's when I passed out. When I came to, it was broad daylight. The boat I was lying in was bumping up against the side of the schooner. And Captain Burgess was calling down to me from the rail.
Mr. Harper, are you alive?
I'm all right, Captain Burgess.
It's been a horrible night, Mr. Harper. But it's all right now.
Can you help me aboard, sir?
Yes. Can you lift up your arms?
Yes, sir. Here.
Easy now. Cato, give me a hand here. Careful now. All right. There. It's a pretty bad wound.
I'm kind of weak. Guess I lost a lot of blood. Sorry about your wife, sir. We couldn't find her.
I know. There's only 3 of us left alive on board now, Mr. Harper. You and I and Cato here.
What happened?
You may not believe it. It was Captain Dayrell.
Yes, I saw him.
Got a hold of the ship's guns and killed the whole crew. Locked me in the cabin while he did.
But he's dead, Captain Burgess. We buried him at sea 4 months ago.
No matter. He's come back now, Mr. Harper. It's his ship, the Evening Star is, and he wants it.
No, it's not possible. The man is dead.
That's what his wife... my wife said when I told her I'd seen him. Said I was crazy. I think she knows better now.
Maybe we could search the ship.
Cato and I went through it at daylight this morning. We found nothing.
Well, there has to be some explanation.
There is. The wicked shall be punished for their sins.
What do you mean by that?
Nothing, Mr. Harper. Nothing at all. Well, I was his friend. I always thought a lot of Captain Dayrell. You know that, don't you, Mr. Harper?
Yes, sir.
It's all right now in the daylight. But he'll come back tonight as soon as it's dark. It's only the 3 of us now to face him, Mr. Harper. 4, if you count Satan. And I'm thinking there's more than one Satan on board this ship.
They helped me to the bunk in my cabin and left me there. That was about noon today. I could tell by the look on Captain Burgess' face that, well, it was pretty certain I wasn't going to live. That's why I decided to write this account. Try to set down everything that happened. In a way, this is the real log of the Evening Star, even if it doesn't make much sense. Anyway, right after sundown, Cato brought me in a tray of food.
How you feel now, Mr. Harper?
Oh, I guess not too bad, Cato.
You like something to eat, maybe?
Later, maybe. You can leave it there, huh?
Yes, but you eat now. Later, I think we all dead.
Has anything happened yet?
It's not dark yet. When it's dark, then he come.
Yeah. Where's Captain Burgess?
I no see him. He's hide somewhere, I think.
Cato, all those who were killed last night, what happened to their bodies?
He's buried in sea. This morning I helped Captain Burgess. You like something else, maybe?
No, thanks, Cato.
Then I go burn much incense, make peace with many gods. For last time now, I think. Goodbye, Prince.
I lit the lamp over the bunk, and I lay there for a long time. I don't know how long. I didn't know where Captain Burgess and Cato were or what they were doing. I kept waiting to hear the sound of shooting. Kept lying there, dreading it. And then gradually, I began to realize that somebody was singing on board, way off. And I knew that voice. I'd heard it somewhere before, singing the same song. It was Mrs. Burgess.
Mr. Harper! Mr. Harper, do you hear it?
I hear it, Captain Burgess. What in the name of heaven's going on?
It's her. She's come back, too. She's in there with him now in the cabin.
Oh, that's impossible. She drowned last night. She's dead.
They're both dead, but they've come back. They're in the cabin now, and she's singing for him. She never sang for me, Mr. Harper, but now she's singing for him. Come, Mr. Harper, you've got to help me. I tell you, they're both in the cabin right now.
Yes, sir. I don't know.
Oh, you're too weak. I forgot. I'll go alone. I'll stop them somehow. I've got to stop them.
I pulled myself up in the bunk and I put my feet on the floor. Weak or not, one way or another, I had to get to that cabin. I managed to stagger outside onto the deck. Captain Burgess had disappeared somewhere, and there was no sign of anything moving there in the moonlight, except Satan the cat, who came up and rubbed against my ankles. The singing had stopped, and the ship was quiet. I made my way forward, and finally was looking through the skylight, down into the captain's cabin. One lamp was lit. Its light fell on a hunched figure that strode about the cabin, cap pulled down low, hands sunk in his pockets, all the old familiar gestures. It was Captain Dayrell, and he was alone. I crouched there with the skylight, shivering from the night wind and from the terror inside of me, watching that awful figure. After a while, it walked over and stood beside the phonograph. And then I realized where that voice had come from. Dayrell had always been crazy about his wife singing, and he'd made a lot of records of her voice. He was playing one of them now. The song went on, and he paced back and forth. I still couldn't figure it out. And then, for just a moment, the white muffler fell back from his throat, and for the first time, I saw Captain Dayrell's face. I'm not sure how I managed to stumble back here to my cabin. I'm writing this now just as rapidly as I can. I may be interrupted at any minute. If that happens, I'll try to slip it behind the map here on the cabin wall in the hopes that it may be... I can hear him coming now. Whoever may read this, please try to get word to my family in San Francisco. Yes? Come in.
I thought you might be asleep, Mr. Harper.
How could anybody sleep, Captain Burgess, as long as Dayrell's loose on board?
Yes, that's true, Mr. Harper. Should have seen him down there in the cabin. And her, too. He was walking up and down as proud as ever. And she was singing for him, just like she used to. You should have seen him.
I did see him.
She never sang for me like that, not at... You saw him? Did he look natural? Just as always?
Captain Burgess, it was you I saw, dressed up in Dayrell's clothes that were stored in the sea chest there in the cabin.
Oh, no, Mr. Harper, you're mistaken. It was his spirit come back to punish us.
It was you all the time, you who fired those shots last night. You're insane.
That's what she said, too. That's because he told her.
Because it's the truth.
Now he's been talking to you.
He's talked to nobody. He's dead. And you've never seen him except in your own guilty conscience. Just what is that guilt, Captain Burgess? Did you kill him?
Oh, don't! Don't say that, Mr. Harper. I was his friend. I thought a lot of him, and Mrs. Dayrell, too. Everybody knew we were friends. Did he tell you that?
You're completely mad.
Don't say that, Mr. Harper. I've got to save you from him. He talks to you, and you're weak, and you can't run away. I've got to save
Captain
you.
Burgess, put on that gun. Don't!
Got to
don't!
Save you! Got to go someplace where he can't find us, Mr. Harper. Go up deck. I'll take you, Mr. Harper. Come on. Don't worry. I'll save you from him. It's his ship, everything on it, and he wants it back. We've got to give it to him, Mr. Harper. Got to let him have it. Got to get off the ship.
Captain Burgess, what has happened?
It's you! Dayrell! Go away!
It's no Captain Dayrell. It's me, Cato.
You can't stop us, Dayrell. I'll show you.
No!
You see, Mr. Harper? I killed him. Dayrell. Now he can't stop us. There he is again. There by the mast. See him, Mr. Harper? He's coming this way. He won't stop. Got to get away! Got to save you, Mr. Harper! Here's the rail. I'll help you. There! See? He's gone, Dayrell. Now, there's just me. And I'm going too. You see, it's all yours now, the Evening Star, just like you wanted it. No, stay back. I'm going.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you The Log of the Evening Star by Alfred Noyes. Adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield, with Jack Webb as Harper, Alan Reed as Captain Burgess, Gail Page as Mrs. Burgess, Louis Van Rooten as Cato and the Cat, and Pinto Colvig as the Conica. Music is conceived and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. Next week...
When you're tired out from doing nothing all weekend, when Blue Monday stares you in the face, next week at this time when your problems seem just too much for you, we offer you Escape.
Next week, we bring you another exciting story of high adventure. Good night, then, until this same time next week, when once again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.